The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.
Despite Georgia's inflation rising to 5.2%, the National Bank's Monetary Policy Committee decided at its November 5th meeting to keep the refinancing rate unchanged at 8%. The bank noted that due to the increasing inflation, the annual inflation forecast has been revised. The average inflation for 2025 is now expected to reach 4%, while in 2026 is projected to decline to 3.5%. Previously, the forecast predicted 3.8% inflation for 2025 and 3.1% for 2026. In October, Georgia's foreign exchange reserves increased by $175 million, reaching a record of $5.6 billion. Compared to the same period last year, reserves have grown by 37% or $1.5 billion. During the first 9 months of 2025, the government executed 19.3 billion Georgian lari of the planned 20.7 billion lari budget. It's 93% of the plan, the lowest execution rate since 2019. The gap between planned and actual spending stands at 1.4 billion Georgian lari. The lowest spending rate was recorded at the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development. Only 475 million Georgian lari out of the planned 713 million was spent. The main shortfalls were in the construction of high-voltage transmission lines and preparatory works for the Anaklia port infrastructure. The Ministry of Infrastructure implemented 91% of its 9-month plan, but major delay was reported in the construction of the Tbilisi-Red Bridge and also Tbilisi-Sadakhlu highways, where only 4 million was spent instead of the planned 160 million Georgian lari. Attributed to tender delays in response to the low budget execution rate, the government plans to revise the 2025 budget. Between January and September 2025, Georgian banks issued a total of 37,371 new mortgage loans, a decrease of around 12% compared to the same period last year. However, due to the rising real estate prices, the total mortgage portfolio increased by 5%, reaching 3.2 billion Georgian lari. In the first 9 months 2025, microfinance institutions operating in Georgia earned a net profit of 109 million Georgian lari, a 10% increase compared to the same period last year. According to the sector's consolidated financial report, this improvement in profitability is linked to increased reliance on pawn shop lending, while in the same period last year, microfinances earned 126 million in interest income from pawn loans. In 2025, this figure rose to 202 million. A recent European Commission report devotes significant attention to the deterioration of democracy in Georgia. It notes that as early as December 2024, European Council concluded that Georgia's EU accession process was de facto frozen. In 2025, the Commission observed a significant democratic backsliding, stating that Georgia retains only the title of candidate status. According to the report, progress on economic reforms over the past year has been limited. Despite solid economic growth in recent years, the Commission emphasized that the domestic political climate and the government decision to halve EU accession efforts until 2028 have become major sources of uncertainty for the business environment. Chinese energy giant Sungrow, one of the world's largest solar panel manufacturers, plans to construct a 100-megawatt solar power plant in the village of Guja, Marneuli municipality. The project will be implemented on a 1.6 million square meter plant plot owned by the company's Georgian subsidiary, ITEC Marneuli.
This is The Checkpoints. I'm Elena Guangelashvili, author and the host of the show, and the Checkpoints team is ready to sum up business and economics week for you. A planned technical mission from the International Monetary Fund to the National Bank of Georgia has been postponed, IMF resident representative Andrew Jewell confirmed in an interview with BMG. The delay is attributed to Natia Tornau, president of the NBG, traveling to China. A new date for the mission has not yet been announced. Among the key topics the mission is expected to address is the governance system of the National Bank. Jewell noted that the IMF has previously advocated for a shift from the current presidential model to a more collegial governance structure where decisions are made collectively by the National Bank's board.
Do they need a new program? It's really their choice. We stand ready. They have expressed interest in a new program, but as you probably know, we have not yet received a formal request. So in the meantime, we are continuing with other areas of engagement. You mentioned technical assistance, that's one. And then, of course, we do economic surveillance, as we do in all of our member countries. There will be a mission coming from headquarters in December, and we will have the Article 4 mission in the spring. So the NBG has taken some positive steps. They have appointed a governor. They have filled vacancies on the governing board. And they have a non-executive majority on the governing board. So these are all things that we had asked for. Now your question is what's outstanding? In fact, the NBG has requested a technical assistance mission precisely to examine, to take stock of what steps they have taken and what further reforms we would recommend. That mission actually was supposed to have taken place this week. It has been postponed. So I would suggest that you ask me that question after the mission has taken place. It hasn't been rescheduled yet, but the purpose of the mission will be precisely to take stock and to see what further reforms we would like to see. We have said publicly that we would like to see the NBG move to a more collegial decision-making model. This is true. They have a very presidential model, we call it now, or we call it a presidential model. It's a bit unique when you look at central banks around the world. So we have said publicly that we think the NBG over time should move to a more collegial model. But again, I don't want to preempt the technical assistance mission. I want to let them come in, do their work, and then we will see. SOE reform is a very important issue. We have been engaged. We haven't been engaged specifically on what you're referring to, this optimization where a lot of employees were dismissed and the government has announced something like 700 million Jewell in savings. We had a TA mission this summer that took stock of reforms to date. The authorities have made significant improvements in terms of improving financial oversight of the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Finance's financial oversight of SOEs. They've also improved their assessment of fiscal risks. So we have seen some real progress on SOE reform, but there are a number of things that are outstanding that have come out of this report. So I would say we have seen some progress, but of course there's always room for more progress. And if the authorities were to request another program, this would be something that we would talk about. Our view is that EU integration is a good thing, that it brings benefits not only to the countries that join the EU, but it brings benefits to the countries that are already in the EU. We have done some research that shows that EU accession leads to significant income gains, and the accession process can be an anchor for reforms. Now, there's no guarantee for success. You have to have real commitment to these types of reforms. But again, we see EU integration as a positive thing. Now, I guess your question is, what would be the consequences if Georgia strays from the EU path? Georgia would lose access to some financing. We already see that now. And it's possible that there could be a negative impact on Western Europe, on investor sentiment. We have seen a decline in FDI coming from Western Europe, and it's conceivable that investors could be concerned about Georgia's EU progression. Our recommendation would be to try to maintain good relations with all of your economic partners, not just in the EU. It's important to diversify, and clearly the authorities are trying to diversify, as evidenced by this very large foreign direct investment project from the UAE. We see the authorities are in China this week trying to improve relations with China. We would recommend that they continue to implement sound fiscal policies, which they have done, control inflation. Inflation is well contained. It's a bit above target now, but generally speaking, it's contained. So continue with prudent macroeconomic policies.
The National Bank of Georgia has issued an official explanation regarding the postponement of the International Monetary Fund's technical assistance mission, confirming that the meeting will take place in the near future. Earlier today, IMF resident representative in Georgia, Jewell, told BMG that the National Bank had requested a technical mission to assess the progress of ongoing reforms and identify additional recommendations. However, Jewell noted that the mission initially scheduled for this week had been postponed indefinitely due to NBG Governor Natia Turnava's visit to China. In response to BMG's inquiry, the National Bank released a statement clarifying the situation. The technical assistance mission requested by the National Bank of Georgia to the IMF has been temporarily postponed based on an agreement with the IMF due to changes in the schedule of the President of the National Bank. The meeting, which was planned during the visit to Washington, D.C. during the annual meetings of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, will take place in the near future. At this stage, a new date is being agreed. We would like to remind you that this is a technical mission within the framework of which the steps already taken in accordance with the IMF recommendations will be assessed and future changes will be discussed, the NBG stated. Despite Georgia's inflation rate rising to 5.2%, the Monetary Policy Committee of the National Bank decided on November 5 to keep the refinancing rate unchanged. According to the NBG's Monetary Policy Report, under the main scenario, average inflation is projected at 5% in the fourth quarter of 2025, falling to 4.3% in the first quarter of 2026 and 3.6% in the second quarter of 2026. In this case, the refinancing rate remains at 8% in fourth quarter of 2025 and the first quarter of 2026, dropping to 7.8% in the second quarter of 2026. In the high inflation scenario, where the fourth quarter of 2025 inflation hits 5.2%, the NBG would increase the refinancing rate to 8.4%, rising to 8.7% in the first quarter of 2026 and 8.8% in the second quarter of 2026, while inflation gradually declines to 4.7%. Thus, if inflation remains above 5.2% by year-end, the National Bank might raise the refinancing rate to counter rising prices. In the first 9 months of 2025, the Georgian government spent 19.3 billion lari out of the planned 20.7 billion, achieving 93.3% of its expenditure target, the lowest budget performance rate since 2019. The shortfall amounts to 1.4 billion lari compared to projections. The Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development recorded the weakest budget execution among all ministries. Out of its 947 million lari annual allocation, the ministry was expected to use 713 million by the end of September, but implemented only 475 million lari, or 67% of the 9-month plan. The shortfall was mainly due to underperformance in large infrastructure projects, including the construction of high-voltage power lines, where only 38 million lari was spent out of the planned 100 million, and the Anaklia deep-sea port infrastructure, where spending reached 50.6 million lari instead of 102.5 million. The Ministry of Regional Development and Infrastructure also underperformed, implementing 91% of its 9-month target. The largest delay occurred in Tbilisi-Tsiteli Bridge and Tbilisi-Sadaklo Highway projects, where only 4 million was spent instead of the planned 160 million lari. According to officials, the lag stems from delays in tender procedures for selecting project contractors. This week's economic news and outlook in our short overview.
Georgia's construction cost index decreased by 0.1% in September 2025 compared to the previous month, but rose by 4.7% year-on-year, according to the preliminary data from the National Statistics Office of Georgia. The residential segment index fell by 0.2% 0.5% month-over-month but grew by 7.5% annually, while the non-residential segment increased by 0.5% and 5.9% respectively. The civil engineering index was nearly unchanged monthly but rose by 1.7% year-on-year. The monthly decline was mainly caused by a 1.6% drop in average construction wages, contributing 0.23 percentage points decline to the total index. On an annual basis, the construction cost index growth of 4.7% was largely driven by a 19.2% rise in construction wages and a 5.3% increase in machinery costs. Since February 2022, construction costs have grown by nearly 25%. Georgia's Ministry of Infrastructure lags behind on budget spending for 2025 in the first 9 months, according to Deputy Finance Minister Georgi Kakauridze. Out of 1.93 billion lari planned, only 1.76 billion lari was spent, leaving a shortfall of 168 million lari. Kakauridze said delays stemmed from late tenders and the launch of new programs, including sports infrastructure and Tbilisi-Rustavi Road project. He expects higher spending in the final quarter as projects progress. The lowest budget utilization was recorded for major road projects such as Tbilisi-Red Bridge and Tbilisi-Sadakhlo highways, financed by €250 million from EIB loan. Only 4 million lari out of planned 190 million lari was spent. Kakauridze noted that despite delays, spending will accelerate in Q4 as tenders conclude and construction begins. Georgia is set to deepen cooperation with China in agriculture, opening new opportunities for poultry exports, said Agriculture Minister David Songulashvili during Prime Minister Irakli Kobakhidze's official visit to China. A memorandum between Georgia's Ministry of Environmental Protection and Agriculture and China's Ministry of Agriculture will focus on experience sharing, environmental management, waste reduction and biodiversity protection. Songulashvili emphasized that China's recognition of Georgia's food agency standards marks a breakthrough for poultry exports. This agreement opens up Georgia's access to the Chinese market, he said. The minister noted that partnership will enhance Georgia's agro-food production, boost exports and strengthen the national economy through expanded agricultural cooperation. Regional Development and Infrastructure Minister Reva Sokhadze highlighted the importance of stronger ties with China, particularly in infrastructure, during Prime Minister Kobakhidze's visit to China International Import Expo in Shanghai. Chinese companies are already involved in major infrastructure projects in Georgia, and we aim to deepen this cooperation further, Sokhadze stated. Chinese state-owned enterprises have won large international tenders for Georgian projects financed by the World Bank, ADB, EIB and EBRD, covering transport, energy and regional development. The total value of contracts with Chinese firms amounted to several billion lari, confirming their major role in Georgia's ongoing infrastructure development. Tbilisi Mayor Kakhakaladze has warned against illegal construction and land seizure, calling them organized scheme rather than social issues. He urged citizens to avoid participating in such transactions. Kaladze said illegal construction often occurs in recreational and forest areas, damaging green spaces. These are organized attempts to seize land, not social cases, he stressed. In 2025, Tbilisi Municipal Inspectorate identified 1,305 violations, conducted over 70 operations, and law enforcement dismantled 300 illegal structures and restored dozens of hectares of land. The mayor pledged continued strict monitoring, thanking inspectors and police for their efforts and reiterating that no illegal construction will go unreported. Georgia's National Forestry Agency reported 510 cases of illegal logging in the first 10 months of 2025, involving 1,350 cubic meters of timber. Accordingly, 35 cases of unauthorized forest seizure were identified. Of these, 55 new cases were recently uncovered, with about 150 cubic meters of seized timber stored in the agency's facilities. Illegal logging was most prevalent in Emirati, where 16 cases have been observed, Kwemokartli 11 and Guria 9, with smaller number in other regions. The agency continues to strengthen monitoring and enforcement to prevent further illegal forest exploitation and protect Georgia's forest resources. The Georgian Competition and Consumer Agency reports a sharp 57% increase in consumer complaints over the first 10 months of 2025, receiving 1,123 applications and handling 3,560 calls. During this period, Competition Agency identified 145 violations across 222 cases. As a result, 68 traders were fined in 111 cases, totaling 170,000 lari, while 132 commitment agreements were signed with companies that pledge to correct unfair business practice and restrict consumer rights. Online trade accounted for 65% of complaints, with in-person purchasing making up 35%. Most cases originated from Tbilisi, followed by Ajara and Emirati. Refund, repairs or replacement of defective goods and restoration of defective service rights being the most common consumer demands. By sectors, 73% of all complaints came from wholesale and retail trade, followed by transport and warehousing 10%, art and recreation 5%, and other activities 12%, reflecting growing consumer violence and Competition and Consumer Agency's expanding oversight.
The European Commission has sharply criticized Georgia in its 2025 enlargement report, describing the country's EU candidate status as in name only due to serious democratic setbacks. The report highlights that following the October 2024 parliamentary elections, Georgia deepened the political crisis with repressive legislation, weakening of democratic institutions, and anti-European rhetoric. Authorities reportedly decided to suspend the EU accession process until 2028, a move the Commission says significantly deviates from the European path enshrined in Georgia's constitution. Key concerns noted include the arrest of opposition leaders, increased pressure on civil society, curbs on judicial independence, the abolition of the Special Investigation Service, and rising violence against journalists. The Commission also called for the repeal of laws such as the law on foreign agents, warning that these measures undermine democracy and civic freedoms. While Georgia has maintained positive economic growth, the report notes that political instability and uncertainty are harming the investment climate, with ongoing risks to the independence of the National Bank and persistent labor market challenges. The Commission concluded that Georgia has failed to meet the 9 priorities necessary for opening EU accession negotiations and urged authorities to undertake comprehensive reforms in democracy, rule of law, and human rights in line with EU values to restore its European path. In 2024, the European Council concluded that Georgia's EU accession process was de facto halted. Since then, the situation has sharply deteriorated, with serious democratic backsliding marked by rapid erosion of the rule of law and severe restrictions on fundamental rights. This includes legislation severely limiting civic space, undermining freedom of expression and assembly, and violating the principle of non-discrimination. Georgian authorities need to urgently reverse their democratic backsliding and undertake comprehensive and tangible efforts to address outstanding concerns and key reforms supported by cross-party cooperation and civic engagement in line with EU values. Following the December 2024 European Council conclusions and in light of Georgia's continued backsliding, the Commission considers Georgia a candidate country in name only. The Georgian authorities must demonstrate resolute commitment to reverse course and return to the EU accession path, the European Commission concludes.
The scorecards are largely positive for Albania, Moldova, Montenegro, and Ukraine. The outlook is mixed for Serbia, North Macedonia, Kosovo, Bosnia-Herzegovina, and Turkey, and negative for Georgia. Georgia has no viable path to European Union at this stage unless conditions change dramatically. It is now a candidate country in name only.
In Georgia, the situation has sharply deteriorated with serious democratic backsliding. Probably never ever before one of the enlargement reports has been really speaking so much about backsliding. We saw a rapid erosion of the rule of law and severe restrictions on fundamental rights. Georgian authorities need to urgently reverse their course. Georgian citizens demand a European future, and they have our support. For the Commission, the candidate status for Georgia exists only on the paper.
Our reporter, Tamta Jijavadze, was in Brussels, closely attending the event with several meetings behind closed doors. And Tamta will join me with additional information we can share without violating Chatham House rules, of course. Tamta, welcome to the Checkpoints. What insights did you bring back to Georgia after the visit in Brussels?
Elena, thank you. First of all, I would like to note that Brussels is just as concerned about Georgia's results in the latest enlargement report as we are here in Georgia. Under the Chatham House rules, I cannot name the specific high-ranking officials I spoke with, but I can share their general sentiments. They said that the latest enlargement report did not come as a surprise, given the developments in Georgia over the past year. In their view, the EU has been very clear about the conditions required for progress in the accession process. They reaffirmed their support for Georgia and expressed hope that a solution can still be found in the best interest of the Georgian people. Officials in Brussels also emphasized their continued readiness to support civil society and independent media in Georgia. When asked why they continue to support Georgia and why they want to see it in the EU, their response was simple. Whatever they see Georgian and EU flags together on the streets in Georgia, they feel a duty to stand with Georgians. Furthermore, when asked whether they regret granting Georgia candidate status or not, their answers was clearly no. They stressed that they are not giving up. However, regarding communication with the current Georgian authorities, opinions differ among EU member states. Some remain open to cooperation, while others are reluctant to engage with what they consider as illegitimate government.
Logical. Everything sounds logical. Thank you, Tamta, for your insights and for the opportunity to share them with our viewers and followers. And next on the checkpoints, according to the German Foreign Ministry, German Ambassador Peter Fischer has returned to Georgia following consultations in Berlin. After consultations in Berlin, the German ambassador returned to Georgia today. He will continue his dedicated work with our full support, the ministry announced on the social network X. On October 19, the German Foreign Ministry stated that Ambassador Peter Fischer had been summoned to Berlin for consultations. According to TBC Capital's latest monthly macroeconomic review, in the first 9 months of 2025, the combined share of the European Union and the United States in remittances to Georgia increased to 63%. The annual growth rate of remittances accelerated to 13.7% in September, with the EU and the US remaining the main sources of money transfers. As for tourism, another key source of foreign inflows, tourism revenues grew by 6.6% year-on-year in the third quarter and by 5% in the first 9 months of 2025. TBC Capital highlights that less traditional markets have become more active, likely driven by an increase in tourists from China, India, and Uzbekistan. In contrast, trends in traditional markets vary. Tourism revenues rose from the EU, Azerbaijan, and especially Israel, while remaining mostly stable elsewhere. Despite an increase in visitor numbers, Russia recorded a decline in tourism tourism receipts. The report also notes that non-resident spending through TBC channels continues to show an improving trend, though a slight slowdown in annual growth was observed in October. Overall, our monthly measure of net foreign exchange inflows, which includes trading goods, tourism receipts and remittances, slowed slightly in September after a strong rise in August, but remain robust. We estimate that the current account surplus, excluding reinvestment, likely persisted in the third quarter, the report states. And now on to business this week. Natia Taktakishvili will take the floor.
Silk Road Group has successfully completed its international bond offering of $400 million with a maturity of 5 years. The transaction marks a significant milestone for the group and for Georgia's private sector capital markets. According to Georgi Ramishvili, chairman of Silk Road Group, this success is a very strong signal for Georgian businesses. This transaction marks a defining moment for Silk Road Group and for Georgia's private sector as a whole. Our success is a strong signal for Georgian businesses. If we could do it, others can too. The more Georgian companies access international capital markets, the benefit to Georgia's economy will be greater. We are proud to have successfully accessed the international capital market with such strong support from global investors. I would like to thank our international partners, JP Morgan and UBS, for their efforts and their unwavering trust in our company. My thanks also goes to everyone who contributed to the achievement: TBC Capital, Galton Taggart, Oppenheimer, and all other partners, Georgi Ramishvili said. The issuance was jointly led by JP Morgan and UBS as joint lead managers, book runners, and rating advisors. This landmark deal represents the largest private corporate issuance even from Georgia, the tightest spread achieved by Georgian private issuer and the first international issuance from the country since July 2024, effectively reopening the market for Georgian borrowers alongside the aforementioned leading international investment banks. The co-lead managers of the transaction were TBC Capital, Galton Taggart, and the international brokerage and investment bank Oppenheimer. A new development company, Placemakers, has entered the global real estate market with its new project, The Lake, located at Lisi Lake, combining private residences with the signature lake house concept. The project aims to create landmark lifestyle destination and a new hub for attraction for Tbilisi. Managing partner Nodar Adeishvili described The Lake as a model of high-quality integrated placemaking that harmonizes architecture with the nature environment. The mountain's natural topography allows us to offer exceptional lake and landscape views from every residence, he said, noting collaboration with leading Georgian architect Vakhtang Vysotsky on the project's first phase. Partner and financial director Zura Pichkaya emphasized that the lake is designed to offer a district lifestyle-driven experience within Tbilisi's largest residential area. Living at the lake means investing in a complete lifestyle defined by rich amenities and diverse activities, he stated, adding that construction will begin in 2026 with the first residence expected in 2029. Valued at $50 million, the project unites local and international expertise. Key partners include TBC Bank, Indian and South African investors, and Abkhazian partner. The counterpart, the lake house, will be designed by world-renowned Norwegian firm Soheta and will feature restaurant, spa, fitness center, and office spaces, serving as the heart of new district. Hospitality industry leaders and prominent entrepreneurs Valery Checheria and Levan Berulava have founded an international consulting company called SALT Project, extending their 15 years of experience in hospitality and development to a broader global scope. Speaking on BMG TV, Checheria said that SALT Project is guided by a commitment to quality and hands-on involvement. We are a consulting company engaged in every stages, from concept creation to opening and event management. We only take on the many projects as we can personally oversee. Berulava emphasized that the firm values uniqueness over quality. We don't accept mass production. Each project is
special to us just as it has been for the past 15 years, he stated. South Project is currently managing 6 active projects in Georgia, USA, Singapore, Italy, and Armenia with a total value of $700 million USD. The founder said all clients approached them first, highlighting the company's reputation and selective approach built on principles of trust, freedom, and creativity. South Project aims to deliver distinctive, inspiring projects for both local and international audience. Kocha Chkhaidze, founder of Georgian wine and alcohol beverage company Askaneli, deeply believes that closer and more consistent dialogue between the private sector and the government is essential for advancing the country's winemaking industry. In an interview with BMG TV, Chkhaidze acknowledged the government's strong efforts to support agriculture and winemaking, but stressed the need for more open communication. The alcohol beverage sector has great potential. The state has done a lot this year for farmers and wine producers, but we need more discussion about what follows each decision. Producers understand market realities broadly. That's why dialogue is vital, he said. Chkhaidze admitted that business also share responsibility for communication gap. It's partly our fault. The government does not refuse dialogue. We just don't take enough initiative. The relationship is not close. There is communication, but we can do better, he noted. He added that even leading wine producing countries face similar challenges. In France, Italy, and Spain, communication between state and producers is a constant process. Talking to business is always important, and there is always room for improvement. We need to grow in this direction too, Chkhaidze concluded. The cost of private houses in surrounding areas of Tbilisi starts at an average of $300,000 USD, according to Tamina Tsotoria, founder of MyCorner.g. Speaking to BMG TV, Tsotoria noted that prices depend on multiple factors, including location, views, land size, and surrounding infrastructure, which can significantly raise property value. The purchase of a standard private house begins at around $300,000 USD, while our portfolio also includes properties priced above $2 million USD. The price varies widely as private homes are evaluated according to many criteria, Tsotoria said. She added that Tbilisi remains the most in-demand area where limited supply has already led to shortage of high-quality properties. Interest is also growing in Tsarkisi, where buyers activity has recently increased. According to Tsotoria, most buyers are Georgian residents, although demand from foreign investors, mainly from Israel and Azerbaijan, is rising, currently accounting for about 5% of total sales. She also highlighted a growing trend of Georgian immigrants returning home and purchasing property to settle in the country. The founder of Hotel Palyani in Mestia, Ekaterina Gwelesiani, says the business is operating in survival mode despite a 20% increase in tourist numbers this year. In an interview with BMG TV, Gwelesiani explained that while occupancy has grown, overall income remains stagnant due to the rising costs and shift in visitor spending habits. The hotel's occupancy rate increased by 20% this year, reaching around 90% during the summer peak, which was very high. However, we achieved this mostly by lowering prices, so total income did not rise significantly, Gwelesiani said. She added that the restaurant adjacent to the hotel remained closed this year because demand for higher spending tourists had disappeared. According to Gwelesiani, the demand for mid to high-end restaurant services in Suanati has dropped sharply, while establishments catering to lower budget travelers managed to continue operating. Guests from Asia usually have a budget of around $10 USD per day for food, which is too low to sustain high-class restaurants, she explained. Meanwhile, product prices, utility bills, and staff salaries all rise every year, making it impossible to survive when business must also cut prices. The hotel founder said Palyani has managed to stay afloat only by drastically reducing expenses, including closing its restaurant. Despite the challenges, Gwelesiani noted one positive trend: the sharp of local Georgian
tourists increased by about 30% this year, while visitors from China, India, Israel, Turkey and Pakistan made up most of the foreign guests. We are glad that more locals are visiting Mesya, but this year we had almost no foreign tourists. The market was we used to rely on, she concluded. The founder of Drunk Cherry in Godavari, Miranda Esakia, believes Georgia is utilizing only a small part of its mountain tourist potential. Speaking on BMG Drive, she stated that the state is using only just 30% of the capacity of mountain resorts, which keeps business dependent on the winter season instead of developing tourists throughout 4 seasons. Tourism is the most important source of income for our country, and what we really have to sell is our history, our culture and our mountain resorts, Esakia said. Unfortunately, the state uses only about 30% of this potential and does not help them to grow into year-round destinations. Despite Drunk Cherry operating year-round, Esakia said the facility remains profitable for 8 months of the year, breaking even only during July and August. We work at a loss most of the year, but we continue because Godavari should not die outside this ski season. If we close, there will nowhere for tourists or hikers to stay, she noted. Esakia emphasized that both the state and the private business share responsibility for developing all-season tourists. She highlighted the attractions such as mountain karting and paragliding, which have already increased off-season visitor numbers. Every year, our income in the remaining months grows little by little. Godavari is becoming more alive. We need more attention, more boost from the state and the business, she concluded. Pizzeria Napoli, located on Marjani Street in Tbilisi, has expanded its operation by opening a new bar area within the restaurant. The expansion officially launched on October 25, according to founder Mamuka Gigladze, who spoke with BMG. With the renovation, Napoli's capacity has grown significantly, from serving about 20 guests to accommodating up to 80 visitors at once. Alongside its signature Italian-style dishes, the pizzeria will now offer a selection of cocktails, wines and other alcohol beverages. We have expanded the space of Napoli. Previously, we could only host 22 people, but now we can welcome up to 80 guests. We are also added a bar where customers can enjoy various cocktails, wines and other drinks, said Gigladze, adding that their main clients include Georgian customers and families. According to founder, the investment in the expansion amounted to over 150,000 lari, and the updated venue now employs around 40 people. Napoli first opened its doors 3 years ago in Tbilisi and has since grown steadily. To date, Gigladze has invested a total of about $230,000 USD in developing and improving the establishment. A 20-megawatt data center may soon be built in Georgia, powered entirely by locally generated electricity in Tbilisi. That is precisely the goal set by Azerbaijan's AES Group, which has already invested over $200 million in Georgia to date. The company, one of Azerbaijan's largest conglomerates, is best known locally for the Dirsi residential project and now plans to construct both a new hydropower plant and a data center on the same site within the existing Dirsi development area in Tbilisi. The project was first announced at the Silk Road Forum in Tbilisi, after which Business Media Georgia conducted an exclusive interview with AES Group's Director of Energy and Industrial Innovation to discuss the details and strategic vision behind this ambitious mega project.
AES Group has become one of the largest Azerbaijani investors in Georgia. How and when did your company first enter our country, and of course, what has been the most significant project in Georgia so far?
We are in Georgia since 2011, and we have invested so far $200 million. And our biggest project was in East Dirsi. We accommodated around 10,000 people there, and part of this project was also a social mission. So we helped to host and provide accommodation for the IDPs. We are looking forward to continue investing, and in next 7-6 years to invest additional $500 million in development, retail, and our flagship project, which is about data center and green energy.
Georgian Green Energy Project is the flagship one, right? The name is correct if I'm saying it.
So, yeah, actually, it's about renewable energy and novel technology, which is Archimedean screw turbines. With our partners, we already have two projects complete in Turkey. We're doing another one there as well, and we completed in Azerbaijan. So we are planning to build the biggest Archimedean screw turbine in the world in Georgia, and co-locate it with a data center. So it will provide a very reliable energy for the digital hub.
So it's combining hydro power plant with data center technology. So you're creating this kind of ecosystem. And what is it called?
Actually, that is a nice question, because we named the data center as Biliki. Biliki, as everybody knows in Georgian, is a path. But also in Azerbaijani, it means the knowledge. So we're creating a digital knowledge and digital path. And this data center will be the biggest in the Caucasus. It will be up to 20 megawatt, built in the phases. And the first phases will be using energy for hydropower. And then we're planning to use the energy from the grid and build other hydropower and solar power plants to power it. That project is about really building a hub for the digital business of Georgia.
Could you share some investment details about the project and which partners are involved in it?
The first two phases will be together with renewable energy, with the hydropower, will be up to 72 million. And we're partnering, our partners there is on energy side is GDF, Georgian Energy Development Fund. And on the digital side is a GreenNet that will be operator of the data center. So we're trying to offer something different that that was not offered in Georgia before, in the Caucasus before. So it will not be a data center for one business or one service or even two. We are to offer the data halls for the cloud. We'll have a data halls for artificial intelligence. We'll have a data halls for telecom, and we will have a data halls for the fintech. So basically, we will be offering the data services for the 4 different type of businesses or enterprises, and it all will be secured to the highest measurement, which is ISO 27001, and it all will be in a very critical infrastructure hosting that is so far not enabled in the region.
And who are your target clients for this project? Could those be mega companies like Microsoft, Oracle, or something like that?
A lot of people talking about this super cycle that started, and you know, people investing $1 trillion. Meta announced $18 trillion. Google announced, I don't know, another $1 trillion.
OpenAI is
everywhere. Yes. We need to be realists. Okay, the Caucasus first need to show that we can, and our project is about this: that we can have a critical infrastructure. We can host and provide services to the people and companies here. But what we can do more is to show to Google they can come and be our clients. They can come and make Georgia, with all its potential, a digital hub.
So Georgia could transform. And what's in it for Georgia? Let's ask this question. And what will our country get from this project? Obvious
is tax revenues, the jobs. So all the nomads and all the young population that thinking about digital business, they don't need to leave the Georgia. The market of energy that people talking about exporting energy somewhere, you will use energy here. And you have a lot of renewable energy. And we're talking about direct investment of $1 billion. And our infrastructure and our project is just, will be small part of it, but important beginning. And if Google will really believe in that, or Meta or Oracle, and we do believe they will, and we started talking to some of them, we think that Georgia could offer the expert of the digital services outside. So people can come and place the cloud here and work from here, and that would really show the whole potential of Georgia.
Well, that's great to hear that. Wish you all the best. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for hosting me, and thank you so much.
BMG's news content was read 2.8 million times in October 2025, according to data from Google Analytics, a 25.5% increase compared to the same month last year. In total, the platform attracted 481,000 unique readers last month, with the majority, 429,000 users, accessing the site from Georgia. Other top countries included the United States, Germany, Russia, Turkey, and Italy. The audience breakdown shows that 56.5% of BMG readers are women, while 43.5% are men, underscoring the platform's strong and diverse readership both in Georgia and abroad. So that's all for today. Join the big army of BMG followers and viewers. Stay tuned to bm.g. It's worth it. We'll meet each other on Sunday.
The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.